to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Last year, and without a dissenting vote except on one occasion, we delivered on that. We're going to do it again this year and make sure we're held accountable to make sure everything we passed last year is in fact practiced this year.
Senator Tester, where do you think we stand right now?
Well, I think Johnny put it out pretty good. First of all, thanks for doing this. I don't know that I've ever been involved in leadership from both sides of the aisles in both houses before in front of the American Legion or any other VSO as far as that goes. But thank you for your input. I think we've got, moving forward with the VA itself, I've said before and I'll say it again, I think Secretary Wilkie has the skills to be able to run the VA in a very, very positive way. As Johnny said, we've given them the tools they need to be successful. Now we need to do the oversight to make sure that it is, the VA is living up to the needs of our veterans around this country. That being said, oversight of the Mission Act, oversight of the Appeals Bill, oversight of the VA in general is going to be critically important because we had a very successful Congress last Congress from a VA perspective, from a veterans perspective, because we were able to pass bills that have been sitting around for a while and then some new ones too. I think just moving forward very quickly, and then I'll let the House side take care of this, but the Vietnam Blue Water veterans issue is an important issue. I hope the VA does not challenge that court decision. I hope it just goes through and we take care of the folks who fought off the shores of Vietnam. And then the second one that we've got to deal with, and we're going to be introducing a bill next week on suicides, which is unacceptable, but it's something that we've got to continue to work to try to find what we can do to stop this horrible thing from happening. But thanks for allowing me to be a part of this.
We'll come back to both of those issues in a minute here, but okay. Chairman, you've got a hearing coming this week on the future of VA and VA 2030, I think it is. Where do you feel VA is now? Do you feel like we're in a better place than a year ago, or are we still saddled with a lot of uncertainty here?
Well, I'm certainly very pleased with the work that my predecessor, Tim Walz, as ranking member, did with Chairman Rowe last year in a very bipartisan spirit. It was a very productive committee, probably, I dare say, one of the most productive committees in Congress in terms of the number of bills passed through our committee actually signed into law. Among them, I would say, mostly on a very bipartisan basis. I am concerned about the implementation of the Mission Act. I'm concerned about the way in which the new access standards for care in the community are being established. We still don't have a permanent undersecretary for health. We're more than 2 years into this administration. That's a very critical post that does need to be filled. I'm worried about just how these access standards are going to be finally vetted. I have concerns over the rate at which suicide prevention funds have been spent, or actually not spent, in the previous fiscal year, and but I want to give the secretary a chance to. He's only been on the job since for a few months. Some critical positions, as I've said, are not filled, and I am concerned that we do proper oversight over the integration of the electronic medical health records. And I know that my colleague and ranking member Phil Rowe believes the same thing. Dr. Rowe, he said to me on the floor, I hope you're going to be doing oversight. And I said, yes, we're going to continue the subcommittee that you established on IT modernization. That's a $10 to $15 billion project, and we've failed at it twice before. And I'm determined to make sure that we get it right. There was a disturbing article just a few days ago in the Washington Post about veterans committing suicide in parking lots. I intend as chairman to continue this tradition of a bipartisan committee I'm not looking to blow things up or inflame matters. Just next week we're intending also to have a roundtable on veteran suicide. I want my committee members on a bipartisan basis to deepen their understanding about the complexities of addressing veteran suicide. It's difficult, it's topic. Thank you. We know that veterans, the majority of veterans committing suicide are not connected with the VA. These incidents that we've seen recently published in the Washington Post are, of course, veterans that were connected, and where the VA fell down. Of course, we want to get to the bottom of that. But we definitely need organizations like the American Legion to help us come up with strategies to reach those veterans who are not connected with the VA, because that's a disturbingly large number of veterans that are committing to suicide today. So VA 2030, let me just briefly mention that. We have an ever diversifying veteran population. It's more minorities are serving in the VA. We have serving in the armed services. We have more women than ever, and we expect those numbers to increase. At least 15% of the veteran populations are women. I know that we had the past president of the American Legion, the first woman president, and congratulations on your tenure. And congratulations on the American Legion for... So we know that, disturbing, one statistic says that 15%, 30% of women veterans screen positive for military sexual assault. And if that's true, that is a very, very disturbing number. And we believe it has some connection to the fact that women don't access their benefits as much as their male counterparts. And some VA medical centers have responded by establishing separate entrances to separate women's clinics in the VA. I'm pleased to announce that under my leadership, we've established a women's veteran task force that will be led by Congresswoman Julia Brownley. You can say woo, that's great. And she's going to be tasked with the known barriers to women accessing their benefits. We want to be able to overcome those barriers, and we want to bring to the surface the barriers that we don't know, the unknown knowns, or the unknown unknowns about women, our women veterans. And the VA 2030 plan is not a plan yet. It's a plan that we are writing as we begin to surface how we need to be prepared by the year 2030 to have a VA that can truly serve our diverse veteran population that includes women, minorities, actually LGBT. We've had, since Don't Ask, Don't Tell, 8 years since that policy has been lifted. So we know that there's going to be a lot of openly LGBT members of the military who've become veterans who need to be properly served by the VA. So that's going to be an emphasis under my chairmanship in the coming couple of years.
A lot to unpack there, but Dr. Rowe, let me just throw the original question to you too. How do you feel about VA today versus a year ago when you were staring down a lot of these issues?
Well, thanks for the question. And first of all, thank all you veterans that are out there that really made all this possible. You're the ones that brought the ideas. We simply implemented many of the ideas that you all brought, and I'll thank you for that. I said 2 years ago, I didn't know how long I would be in the position. It turned out I was hoping I would be there longer than 2 years, but Chairman Takano and I have worked close together, and I want to give a shout out to these two gentlemen to my right. They were great partners in the Senate to work with, and a shout out to both you all. None of this would have happened without the cooperation both of the Republicans, Democrats, House, and Senate. Let me just very quickly go through what I think we accomplished. We passed almost 80 bills, almost 50 of them were passed into laws, and we funded the VA at its highest level ever. When I came to the Veterans Committee in 2009 as a freshman, we were spending on all veterans benefits about $97 billion. That number was north of $200 billion this year. So the country stepped up. We need to be sure that we're spending this money wisely. And Secretary Shulton came and said he needed some tools to be able to do the job better. One was the Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Bill. We passed that. And one very near and dear to my heart, because I used it when I got out of the military in 1975, was the GI Bill. We passed the Forever GI Bill, where a veteran can now use that going forward. That benefit never sunsets. And one also very near and dear to me, if you shed blood for this country, you can use your GI Bill the rest of your life if you get a Purple Heart. And that should have been the way it should have been from the very beginning. So in our Gold Star families, we increased that benefit. We also funded the Choice Bill 3 different times to the tune of about $6 billion. We passed, and I hope we have time to discuss it in detail, the VA Mission Act, which I think will be transformative. And the chairman's idea of a 2030, we absolutely have to look at that. Let me just give you a quick down and dirty. Heads in beds and hospital beds peaked in 1981. The population has grown 40% since that time, and yet we have 10% less people in hospital beds. So the VA is transforming from this big, huge hospital systems to more outpatient. And they're going in the right direction. Over 800 outpatient clinics, C-box around the country. And I visited and gone from Long Island to Los Angeles and all points in between in the last 2 years. And quite frankly, the VA is doing a great job in some places and not so good in other places. So I'm glad we're having this hearing. One last thing I want to say about the Blue Water Navy bill. You know, Larry Bird even misses a free throw, so we didn't get that one done. We passed that in the House 382-0, and we just couldn't get it done in the Senate. There's been this court ruling. Look, we need to do the right thing, pass this bill and sign it into law and be done with it. Quite frankly, one of the reasons I stuck around and ran for Congress again in my district instead of going home and play golf badly is the Blue Water Navy. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. I served in Korea. And so many men and women at the end of that war were treated poorly. And it's time to do the right thing and get it done. And I believe we will this time. I absolutely do. And going forward, just one other thing very quickly. I'll just use 30 seconds. What the chairman said about the Cerner, the electronic health record, I put one in my office 12 years ago. It is a huge undertaking. I was out at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane and saw the difficulty that they were going through there. We have got to get this right because veterans' health, their benefits, disability, and so forth are related to how well we do this. If we mess this up, I told the secretary I want to go in the witness protection program because it's going to be that big of a screw up, I can tell you, if we do. So we have got to get this right, and that's why we set this subcommittee up on just technology, just implementation of this. It is a huge undertaking, much larger than DOD is. So that's one of the things I want to work on. And veteran suicide, if we can't, we were spending $8 billion a year and haven't moved the needle one bit on the suicide rate in this country. We need to be doing something different. And the chairman's going to start with some hearings, and I fully support that.
Well, look, you all mentioned suicide up here. Let's start right there. I mean, Senator, you said you've got legislation coming out. What's the next step here? Because there has been a lot of effort. There's been a lot of attention. This is one of the Legion's top priorities for the coming year. But we haven't seen the needle moved. We haven't seen that result yet. So what steps do you think need to be taken here beyond? I guess there's the issue of not spending all of the money. But what else do you need to do?
Well, there's a number of things, and I don't know that this bill will be the end-all, but I think it will help. It will make sure that the folks who are transitioning out of the military have a year automatically of health care. It will make sure that nonprofits that are out there doing work in the area of telehealth can get access to some dollars. And it does a bunch of more stuff, and I could have my person come up and list them off to you, but you'll know because it's all stuff that I think the American Legion and other VSOs have advocated for, and I think it's a step in the right direction. The other thing, I know it's a step in the right direction. I think the other thing that has to happen, though, there is still a stigma around mental health and suicide that we have to figure out how to break, and I think the VSOs can help in that area a lot. This is the 21st century. We know a lot more about the mind than we did in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I can tell you unequivocally that people that get help can have mental health conditions fixed just like you'd fix a broken arm or a dislocated knee or whatever it might be. So we have to work as a group, as a society, to try to reduce the stigma as we try to take money and put it in the areas that do the most good. And I think it's around providers. It's around making sure that the veteran doesn't have to fight for the benefits, that they have it. It's making sure that the telehealth system, especially in those more remote areas, is there, and that network is there to be able to provide the veteran with the health care in a timely manner.
Chairman, you mentioned the hearing coming up. What are you hoping to get out of that? Is it just going to be that issue of not spending all of the available outreach funds, or are there other problems that you're seeing?
It's actually not going to be a hearing. We had to set it up. Okay. We had to set it up as a round table. We weren't
you'll
able
let
to,
all the reporters in?
Yeah, on a short.
You'll let all the reporters in, though?
I'll get back to you on that. I'll get back to you on that. Let's just say that I think I'm interested in making sure that our members get down beneath some of these stories we've seen in the paper. Yeah, I understand that there was some inaccuracies in that Washington Post article. Some of it's old information, but more than that, it's a complex issue. I mean, to the extent that there were scheduling problems and scheduling errors that led to the frustration of some of these veterans, I want to get to the bottom of that. I want to know where the VA is accountable and hold the VA accountable for issues such as that. But there's also issues about, Senator Tester mentioned this transition, making sure that the veterans have, and I think regardless of their discharge status, that they have access to mental health care. There's something about a warm handoff, that there's not a warm handoff, that because of our medical record issue, there's a disconnect between those veterans that are very, very vulnerable and the VA being able to know who they are. So there's something about that transition that's a problem. There's the other big problems that as I said earlier in my earlier remarks, the older veterans who aren't connected with the VA for a lot of different reasons. Many from the Vietnam War era had very bad experiences with the VA and want nothing to do with it. And the question is, how do we reach those disconnected folks who do pose, that they are at higher risk? And that's a different kind of issue. That's how do we structure it, incentivize communities, and find out which communities have been successful at reaching out to these veterans. One of the most inspiring things that I've done as a member of Congress, and I don't know, Phil, you might have done this in your own district, but it's award those Vietnam War lapel pins that commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the war. And we've organized a couple of those in my district, and not a dry eye exists after we do one of those. And we've had Vietnam vets come out of the woodwork. I had 3 friends who enlisted together, not my friends, but they were friends among themselves, 3 amigos. They enlisted together, served together, came back together, hadn't really been together since they came to this event. There was one gentleman who said that he put his medals in, how we get America, and I suspect Americans will want to do this. This task force is I think, my first cut at trying to make sure that members of both sides of the aisle see this as a way to deepen their understanding of the complexities and begin to chip away at what the barriers are. There's I think a deep frustration level that we have allocated the money, but we're not moving the needle. But we can't back off. We got to keep our
treated them for a disease that they didn't do a very good job of, and they're suffering from that disease. I think one thing we have to remember, we have a lot of guys that came home from Vietnam that would have not come home from any other war because the injuries. But our medicine improved, and now it's unbelievable. But with the prosthesis, with all people could walk again, people could eat again, people could do a lot of things. What's not she had
not quick.
You're right.
His southern accent is very comforting to me, let's put it that way. And Phil, yours too. I appreciate your accent too. Whatever that means. So the question for me, so I was disturbed that that while they were coming up with this latest promulgation of 30-minute drive time, that it didn't seem to me that VSOs were at the table. I was getting complaints from the VSOs that they seemed to be shut out of the process, and that was concerning to me. It was concerning to me that they were being very, very, tight with the information with us. I had hoped that my hearing would have been, my first hearing with the secretary would have been the week before we broke, and the topic was going to be on the access standards. But they weren't there. I mean, they have until June to get this done. I'm not, I realize that. But they didn't have. It seemed like this 30-minute standard is almost as arbitrary as just as arbitrary, if not more, than the previous standard of 30 days and 40 miles. Their task was to clarify those arbitrary standards. I can't help but think that this is a liberalization. It's a step in liberalization in the sense of it's a more open access standard, which is going to mean potentially far more people eligible to access care. And I don't know what modeling they're using, if they've actually forecasted how many more veterans will use care in the community. And if they don't ask for more money, that's going to inevitably mean a drain on resources of the internal capacity. I'm so glad to hear my colleague Phil Rowe talk about the need for more physicians, more providers. And it's not the medical workforce in our country needs attending to. This 100,000 doctor shortage is very alarming. Now, I can tell you in my own situation in Riverside, California, where Loma Linda is on the other side of the county line with San Bernardino County, in California, 30 minutes is nothing, right? To drive across, people commute from my community into Los Angeles an hour and a half, 2 hours every day. But if suddenly everybody who lives 30 minutes away from Loma Linda on my side of the county is eligible for private sector care, that's not a solution, because they're going to wait just as long for some of those appointments as they would having to drive over to the VA. So it's not a solution in my area on the face of it. So I have a lot of questions. I'm not saying necessarily this access standard they've established is going to be the doom of the VA. But as Senator Tester said, in fact, by sort of default, we could see a withering away of the internal capacity.
I know you've focused a lot on the vacancies within VA, and we just saw some new numbers this week. They got 49,000 vacancies throughout the system, and it's steadily creeping up a little bit. But there's an argument to be made there needs to be more hiring, but there's also an argument to be made that if those doctors aren't there, veterans shouldn't have to wait while they figure out the hiring process. So how do you balance those two things? How do you say, look, we need to find a way to make sure the veterans are getting care and setting these standards while we fix the other things to build up VA?
Well, like I said, in my particular area, choice is not necessarily the solution. I mean, we have a community shortage in my area. We're under doctor. Mm-hmm. A big response is we need more doctors, and we need to use this critical shortage at the VA as part of building the political will to work with the Medicare-funded doctors, the VA-funded doctors, the FQHCs who fund the doctors. I didn't even know this. I've learned more about medical residencies in my 6 years than I thought I would learn about. The children's hospitals have a separate line item for medical residencies. And we need to train more doctors, and frankly, this is a great opportunity for us to get more Americans in these residencies. And we have a lot of medical students that don't match to those residencies. People don't realize that the federal government is the key, is the spigot on our doctor supply. It's not the medical schools. It's the federal government's been largely responsible for funding these medical residencies. And the shortage is affecting the VA, but it's a larger, so the overall supply needs to be increased. We should be having deep conversations about the whole medical workforce.
Neither system is going to be able to provide everything for you. So there are going to be situations like in neurology and some very different subspecialties that you're going to need referral. And so I think they're doing a market analysis across the whole. And a half ago, I had prostate cancer, had surgery. The doctor who did my surgery at home is a friend of mine, and he no longer sees VA patients because the VA wouldn't pay his group timely. So they've lost access because of the VA's inability to pay their bills. Acted a little bit hard, and we've got a robot down at the Nashville VA. But the quality of care you get.
All right, look, we're going to move into the lightning round section here because I still got a lot of topics to cover. But one we've got to get into is the Blue Water Navy, which I think you referenced earlier. We got this court ruling now that says VA is responsible for awarding those benefits. We'll see if VA decides to appeal that. But what is the plan in Congress right now to deal with this? You guys got the work done last year. I assume we're just going to roll ahead with the same sort of proposal, or do you see major changes to what Dr. Rowe put together last year?
Well, in light of the court decision, the pay for is significantly less, and I'm pushing my staff to get a bill to the floor as soon as possible. We're also having simultaneous conversation with, at the staff level of the Senate. But I hope to, Phil, I know that I've heard through my staff that, I'm interested in getting a markup as soon as possible out of committee, because we do have to make some adjustments in light of the court decision. I'm hoping that the secretary is not going to appeal the decision, but I think just to be doubly sure, Congress needs to get a bill passed and signed into law expeditiously, regardless of where this may end up in the 90-day appeals period.
What about the Senate side? Do you think you can get it through now that the court decision's hanging there?
I wake up at night dreaming about the Blue Water Navy. Last few months of my service last year was all about that and a few people that made my life miserable. But quite frankly, we don't have any misery right now. The one miserable problem has gone away. Another miserable problem is doing something else like running for president. So I have a lot less time. They have a lot less time to bother me. Because of Mr. Takano and because of Phil, we're in great shape. And because of John as a great spokesman for the Blue Water Navy, we're in great shape. So even though they don't have a big ocean in Montana, but we're working on that. But anyway, let me say this. And John and I haven't had time to discuss this. So if I say something incorrect, John, you correct me if you will. But I think the VA ought not appeal the decision. That's number one. That would make everything as simple as possible. Number two, and one of the gentlemen, someone said it about the pay for, the court decision lowers the cost of the pay for if we go ahead and act. I think you were referring to that. Yeah. That's another good thing, although it's kind of a false positive, but nevertheless, I'm not going to get into that. Yes. So we ought to go ahead and do that. But if the court doesn't, if the VA doesn't, we'll take another bill up and go there. Nothing has been better vetted than we did on that bill. We were late to the party. I'll admit, Phil Rowe was the first person to the party. And he got life and got the House working on it. And God came to us, and I had a couple of my, in the Senate, to get things done a lot of times, especially the last session, you have to do an open UC and hope that nobody will object to it so you can have an early debate to get a bill over to the House. We tried that on the Blue Water Navy and 3 times, and it was objected to each time by one person who really was doing so because of their responsibilities on the budget, and they felt like it was going to cost too much money. And I explained to him, if we'd go ahead and do it, we'd have exactly what's true now with the decision the courts have made. The cost wouldn't be as high for legislative purposes. But since that's gone now, the answer to your question is we will look and take up what the House sends us as quick as we can, or we'll put up something for us to take up as quick as we can, and we'll encourage the VA to say, we're not going to appeal this. It's time to make this happen. And then we'll go start digging around in the rocks and everywhere else we find money and start finding the money to pay for it. So.
Senator, there's a great song by Hank Snow, Moving On.
Man, I'm moving. I tell you what.
Well, all I want to say is the science shows that the benefit should be the courts, who I don't always agree with, have agreed that the science is there and the veterans should get the benefit. Johnny did everything imaginable under his power at the end of last Congress to get this thing across the finish line. But in the Senate, one person can stop it, and one person, in fact, did stop it. But there's something that people in Congress need to understand, and that is that the veterans' health care is a cost of war. And if we're not willing to pay for it, if we're not willing to pay for it, we ought not be sending our young men and women into the battlefield.
Another one of the priorities that the Legion's going to be highlighting this year is women veterans, services in the VA, special programs. I think, Chairman, you said that Congresswoman Brownlee is going to be heading up a task force. I don't know if there's anything commiserate on your side that you guys are looking at, but there's an issue, again, that is much like suicide, much like some of these issues we've been talking about for a while. I don't know how much progress we've made. It's 5 guys sitting up here talking about it. What else do you see needs to be done in the short term?
Well, look, the VA's made progress, but they haven't made enough. The military's changed over the last 50 years. You guys and gals know that. And the facilities have to be brought up to snuff. The doctors have to be brought up to snuff. They're not just treating guys anymore. The fact is there's different issues out there, and they need to make it a priority. I'm talking about they being the VA need to make it a priority, because women are a huge part of our military now, and once again, they're doing the same kind of work that everybody else is doing, and so we've got to accommodate their needs. And I might add, and it goes back to something Phil Rose said earlier, they can't use the excuse we don't have the dough. They got the dough. They got the money. So get her done.
Look, I've got like 2.5 hours worth more of questions, but Matt's giving me an angry look over there, so I think there's some audience questions we're going to take, and if he doesn't use up all the time, I'll keep you here for as long as I can. So, but Matt, you want to?
Yes, thank you so very much. Thank you to the 4 gentlemen for being here. We're going to ask for a few questions from the audience, and we'll start with past National Commander Jake Comer.
First of all, the American Legion wants to offer us sincere thanks for the 4 of you being here today. I don't know, in all the years I've been around, 63 years, I don't know how long I've never seen this situation before. But the American Legion, and people throughout the United States know full well the bipartisanship of the Veterans Affairs Committee, both the House and Senate. You're to be commended for that. And no matter what the problem is externally with the other politics, you guys stick together. My question is, in understanding our problems and what you have to go through, do you get together quite often? Like, do you get to go to lunch and look over the problems of the veterans as leadership of this committee?
I don't think they're allowed to eat lunch. I think we keep them working all the time, don't we?
Some would say I ate too many lunches.
What is the really? Obviously, Chairman, you're coming in new here, but you 3 have worked together for quite some time. You've been on the committee. So what is the relationship? How does it work here?
Well, my whole life, I believe I was a salesman and earned my living selling things. So I believe in friends and future friends. I don't worry about making enemies. I work about making friends. And food is a great way to make a friend. Now, John makes that a new level.
Thanks, Johnny.
Let me tell you, feeding this guy is no passing thing. But he will tell you that I asked him to dinner with me and Heidi Heidkamp. I took them to dinner to the Prime Rib, which is not far from where we are here. They don't give that stuff away. We had the best night. I learned more from John that night, I think, and Heidi than I have any time, and I'm going to do it again. This year I've had a couple other times. I think it's a great way you break bread, you talk about issues, and just you be yourself and don't make it some hidden agenda. It's a great way to do it. But we have a great committee, and I think I've watched the House enough over the last 4 years. They have a great committee and have great leadership too, where all of us foster conversation, interaction, and solving problems. And sometimes food's the best way to get to that, but it's not the only way.
Do you think you can keep the bipartisanship going with the new guy?
Well, we see each other every day.
Yeah, we do.
On the House floor, we're wandering. If you notice all that chaos, it's amazing. You watch it on C-SPAN. How does anything get done? It actually does. And so we see each other every day. And practically talk every day. So I think, and again, we've had a great open conversation for the last several years since Chairman Takano's been on the committee, what, 6 years?
6 years.
And I've been there 10. And so we've gotten a very good, one of the things that's frustrated me about our committee is we end up, I don't know about the Senate, but we end up with a lot of new members, if you guys will notice. And that's a little bit tougher for us because we have to educate our new members, and we do have a lot of new members. And I meet with our side very frequently, and as a matter of fact, I've had some of the Democrats, the new Democrat members have come into my office, and we've had a chance to meet each other before we even gotten started with hearings.
Well, let me just also say that Phil and I have traveled to, he invited me on a CODEL to Afghanistan, and we've traveled together. I mean, one of the ways in which members across the aisle really do get to know each other is to spend time with each other on travel. And we did the Thanksgiving greetings to, thank yous on Thanksgiving to our service members in Afghanistan and also Kuwait. Remember how I upgraded you?
Yep, I do.
So I have asked my
staff.
staff.
Frequent flyer miles to upgrade me to a better seat. I've appreciated it too.
Well, I got to fly back and forth to California. If I don't use them, I said, might as well try to make a friend. So, I did ask my staff to contact yours, find out when it's a good time to get to lunch or go to dinner. But it's my intention to meet with Phil quite regularly off the floor as well, just to kind of keep the lines of communication open. And it's fair to say, Phil, it's getting across to the Senate side is a little more difficult, right?
It's a long walk. I have to do it all
exactly.
the time. So, Matt, you want to?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and say that I think the key to success is to make sure that you're fed. So if you'd like quarterly, we're happy to buy the four of you lunch to keep this fostering conversation moving forward. Our next conversation is the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Topping.
We thank you for being here also. The American Legion recently sat down with the Command Sergeant Major of the Army, who is extremely focused on credentialing, so that troops leave the Army with a certificate to obtain a quality job. Can you share with us what your committees are doing in terms of credentialing and setting up our veterans for success?
So credentialing, transition, do you have anything, Chairman, you have anything planned? I know you've...
Two things that popped in mind. One, the Warrior Transition Centers that we put in started a few years ago, where we're getting the veterans to answer questionnaires online without having a human being there. So the stigma issues that go with PTSD, TBI, sexually transmitted diseases, all the bad things that we have to deal with from time to time. It's a way to find out early about those instead of it's late and down the line. So we've worked on doing that. And what was the other part of the question?
Just... certificates, transition.
Well, the new GI Bill, of course, is designed to make sure more veterans have access to benefits, which will include their education as well. So we promote education a lot, and we promote it to be a part of the whole VA package.
And I think bringing the skill set that the military personnel bring during their service, and being able to get the private sector to recognize that, whether it's in the medical field or driving truck or whatever it might be, we still have a ways to go. And you guys are, honestly, guys and gals, the folks in the American Legion and every VSO are critically important in putting pressure on the private sector, and we'll put pressure on what we can in the military to make sure that their work that they've done counts. Look, we need nurses. There's a lot of folks that do medical work within the military. Let's figure out how we can get those transitioned to VA or the private sector. It doesn't matter, because they have a skill set. Same thing, driving truck. I mean, believe it or not, we have a shortage of truck drivers in this country. There are a lot of folks within the military that drive truck under incredibly intense conditions. You can't tell me that doesn't transfer over to the private sector. It absolutely does. We need to do a better job of making that transfer.
One of the things that we need to do, let me help you with that a little bit. We've done in the state of Tennessee where, and Senator Tester is talking about truck. If you can drive an M1A1 on the back of a truck across the state of Tennessee, you should be able to drive a Food City delivery truck after that. And What we need to do is to figure out how to get the military needs to put some criteria down when they train these people so it's transferable to a state. State, for instance, I have a state medical license. I don't have a national medical license. But there should be criteria out here if you do EMT work or whatever that's transferable. Why in the world are we spending money educating these young people, doing an amazing job in the military, and then go back out and use your GI Bill to do the same thing over again? It makes no sense whatsoever. We should credential these young folks, bypass all that stuff, and we've got to get the state licensing board.
Congressman, I know you can understand me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Senator Tester, it's good to see you. Matt couldn't bring bacon late in the day. It's always good to see you. Good having you last year. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today, and also the time you spend with American Legion, hearing our thoughts and concerns which help y'all in your decisions on bills and things. But recently there was a bill introduced into Congress that calls for the last World War II Medal of Honor recipient, when he passes away, to lay in state in the Capitol Rotunda.
Wow.
And what I'd like to ask is, of course, this is a great way to honor the greatest generation, but could you share with us how you would stand on this bill when it comes up? Now, if that's a problem, straighten Matt out. He's one wanting me to talk to you about it.
Well, whether this is a problem or not, Matt needs to be straightened out. Okay?
That's for sure. That's for sure.
I will tell you that I haven't done the history to see who's laid in state, but at first blush, I would just say that if anybody should be allowed to lay in state, it's a member of the greatest generation that gave me the opportunity to be sitting on this stage today as the United States Senator from Montana.
I can't think how anybody would vote against that.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't see how anybody would. The last survivor passes from those that saved us, the greatest generation. Absolutely, they should have the honor, and absolutely we should do it.
I associate my remarks with both senators. Absolutely.
Same. I know that we're gonna observe the 75th anniversary of D-Day in June, and I know Speaker Pelosi is going to actually cancel votes on a few days to make sure that members can participate in that. And let me just say that you know, I wouldn't be here if 3 of my great uncles didn't serve in the 442nd Infantry Battalion, and one of them didn't come home. And so I think about that quite often, and it would be fitting and proper for the last World War II veteran to lay in state, and I'd like to see that happen.
Well, listen, gentlemen, thank you so much. Before I let you go, one more question, because I know Matt wanted me to get this in too. You've got the Legion here. Real quickly, what do you want these folks to do for you? I know you here have a lot of communication. They're going to come to you, but what do you need them to do while you're talking about these issues, while you're pushing these issues out? So,
well, look, I take my directions from the veterans. I'm not a veteran. I take my directions from the veterans. You represent a large block of veterans in this country. You have to make sure your voice is being heard, and when your voice isn't being heard, you need to rip my face off or the face off who's not listening to you. Okay?
And hopefully all of you go back and tell the folks back in your area that you came here, all 4 chairs were here. We sat down and talked to you, you met with us and talked to us. If you will go to meet your local rep, they will meet with you in most cases. Now, we may have a fool or two somewhere that wouldn't do it, but and we got a few fools. I mean, not up here, but so go out and shake their hand. They'll come meet you. If you need them, come call us.
Well, I appreciate you all coming, and I want to recommend you do one thing. I want you to find out who the one senator was that objected to Blue Water Navy and bombard his office. That's what I want you to do.
Let me tell you. They did.
they did.
Yeah. Mackenzie can't hear anymore.
Chairman, any parting thoughts?
I want to just point out that Phil Rose said that. And I associate myself with that remark. Let me just say that there's a lot of disgust today among the American people about money and politics and how money runs so many of the decisions that are made on the Hill or influences it. I have to say that you, in most of the cases I've seen, have been more powerful than the money forces out there because of your independence and because of who you are and what you represent. And I think there's a wide perception that the American Legion and all of the other, chartered VSOs are above money, above politics. And so when you speak, members of Congress listen, and that they vote against you or not with you at their peril. So just know that. Don't doubt that about, you know that about your power. And my last request is you do everything you can to transmit that understanding to the new generation of veterans. Do what you can to remake and reinvent yourself at the local level. We need the American Legion in every community. And we need to find ways to connect to these younger veterans and meet their needs. And, I just thank you for the work you do.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Good job.
Just one last thing. It's because of my great respect for the former chairman of the House Veterans Committee, but his name is Senator Lee.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies
you
and
so
gentlemen.
much.
If you will stand by, another round of applause for these gentlemen. If you will stand by for about 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to begin the Know Before You Go. Let us just switch out a chair. We'll be right back.